The armor made a soft hissing sound as Daehyun walked through the corridors of Aegis 7. 6 years he had worn it. 6 years since the war started. 6 years since he had felt truly vulnerable. Other soldiers took their armor off when they returned to base. They showered, they slept in regular clothes, they felt human again. Not Daehyun. His armor had become part of him. Some of the newer recruits whispered that he even slept in it. They were not entirely wrong. The patrol had gone well. 3 smuggler ships stopped near the border. No shots fired. No incidents? Just another day keeping the peace between humanity and the Thrusian collective. Daehyun had been doing this for so long that it felt automatic. Suit up, patrol, return, report, repeat. He reached the command center and saw Commander Hyejin Park waiting for him. She stood with her hands behind her back, her expression serious. It was always serious. Park ran Aegis 7 like a military textbook come to life. Everything by the rules? Everything by procedure. Corporal Kim, she said. Good work on the patrol? I need to brief you on something important. Daehyun stood at attention. Yes, Commander. The Thrusians are sending a delegation. They want to discuss trade agreements and border security. This is the biggest diplomatic meeting we have had in 2 years. Daehyun nodded. He had heard rumors about this. The Thrusians were insect-like aliens, tall and covered in natural armor that grew from their bodies. They had been at war with humanity for 3 years before the peace accord. The peace was fragile. Both sides still did not trust each other. You will lead the security detail, Park continued. Full combat readiness. The Thrusians respect strength, so we show them strength. I want your best team. I want everyone in full armor. Weapons ready but not aimed. We need to look professional and capable. Understood, Commander. When do they arrive? 3 days. Use the time to prepare. This cannot go wrong, Daehyun. If this meeting fails, we might be looking at renewed hostilities. The weight of those words settled on him. More war, more death. More reasons to never take off the armor. After the briefing, Daehyun went to the training area. A young private named Jiwoo was there, practicing with a rifle. She was 19, fresh from basic training. She had only been on the station for 2 months. Corporal Kim, she said, setting down her weapon. I heard about the Thrusian delegation. Is it true you will be in charge of security? Yes, Jiwoo looked nervous. What are they like? The Thrusians? Daehyun thought about the question. He had seen Thrusians during the war. He had fought them, killed some of them, but he had never really talked to one. They are different from us, he said. But they are not monsters. They have their own rules, their own way of seeing things. Were you scared? During the war? Daehyun looked at the young woman. She reminded him of someone he used to be. Someone who asked questions. Someone who felt things. Yes, he said honestly. I was scared every day, but you kept fighting. I kept doing my duty. That is what soldiers do. Jiwoo was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, What did you want to do? Before the war, I mean. Before all this. The question caught Daehyun off guard. No one had asked him that in years. He had almost forgotten the answer himself. I wanted to be a teacher, he said. I studied history. I thought I would teach children about the past so they could build a better future. Why did you join the military? The war started. People I cared about died. I thought if I could protect others, maybe it would matter. Maybe it would help. Did it? Daehyun did not answer. He did not know the answer. The next 3 days passed quickly. Daehyun selected his security team. 8 soldiers including himself. He drilled them on protocols, on Thrusian customs that he knew, on how to stand and where to position themselves. Commander Park reviewed everything twice. Remember, she said during the final briefing, the Thrusians value strength and discipline. We do not show weakness. We do not show fear. You wear your armor with pride. You represent all of humanity. The words felt heavy. All of humanity. Daehyun wondered if all of humanity would wear armor forever. If they would ever feel safe enough to take it off. On the morning of the meeting, Daehyun checked his armor 3 times. Every seal perfect. Every system functioning. He looked at himself in the mirror. The helmet reflected back at him. He could barely remember what his own face looked like anymore. A message came through his communicator. It was from Myri Choi, the station's cultural liaison. She was a civilian, a linguist who studied alien species. Corporal Kim, I need to brief your team before the Thracians arrive. There are important cultural details you need to know. Daehyun gathered his team in a conference room. Myri stood at the front looking small compared to the 8 armored soldiers. The Thracians have a concept they call true-facing, she explained. It means presenting yourself honestly without deception. They remove their ceremonial armor during important meetings. It is a sign of trust and openness. One of the soldiers, a man named Timon, spoke up. They expect us to remove our armor? I do not know, Myri said. But I wanted you to understand their perspective. To them, keeping armor on during peaceful meetings can seem like you do not trust them. Like you are hiding something. Daehyun felt something stir in his chest. Unease, maybe. Or recognition. Was that what he was doing? Hiding? We follow Commander Park's orders, he said firmly. We wear our armor. That is the protocol. Myri looked at him with something like sadness in her eyes. I understand, Corporal. I just wanted you to know. An hour later, the Thracian ship docked. Daehyun and his team stood in the diplomatic hall, a large room with high ceilings and windows showing the stars outside. They formed 2 lines, creating a corridor for the aliens to walk through. Commander Park stood at the far end of the room, next to a large table where the meeting would take place. Myri stood beside her, ready to translate if needed. The doors opened. The Thracians entered. They were massive. The leader, Ambassador Velmora, stood over 8 feet tall. Her natural armor was deep purple and black, gleaming under the lights. She had compound eyes that seemed to look in multiple directions at once. 4 arms moved with grace as she walked. Behind her came 5 more Thracians, each impressive in their own way. Daehyun had seen Thracians before, but never like this. These were not soldiers. These were diplomats. There was a dignity to how they moved. Velmora stopped in the center of the room. She looked at the armored human soldiers lining the walls. Something in her posture changed. Daehyun could not read alien body language perfectly, but he sensed surprise. Maybe disappointment? Commander Park, Velmora said, her voice clicking and chirping. A small device on her chest translated the sounds into human speech. We come in peace. We come to build trust. Welcome, Ambassador, Park replied. We are honored to host you. The Thracians moved toward the table. The meeting was about to begin. Daehyun stood at attention, watching everything, ready to protect if needed, but protection, he was beginning to realize, might not be what this moment needed. He pushed the thought away. He had his orders. He had his duty. He had his armor. That was enough. It had to be enough. The meeting began with formalities. Ambassador Velmora spoke about the history between their species. Commander Park responded with careful diplomatic language. Myri translated the subtle meanings that the machines could not capture. Everything seemed to be going well. Daehyun stood against the wall with his team. His helmet display showed him vital signs, threat assessments, exit routes. All green. All safe. But something felt wrong. He watched the Thracians carefully. They kept looking at the human soldiers. Not with fear or anger. With something else. Confusion, maybe? Or concern. One of the younger Thracians, introduced as Carix, shifted in his seat. He was smaller than the others, probably young by their standards. His natural armor was lighter in color, less scarred. He whispered something to Velmora in their clicking language. The translator did not catch it. Velmora raised one of her hands. The gesture seemed to mean wait in any language. Commander Park, she said. Before we continue, I must address something. A concern from my delegation. Park straightened. Of course, Ambassador. What concerns you? Your soldiers? They wear their battle armor. They hide their faces behind masks. In our culture, this is troubling. The room went silent. Daehyun felt his heart rate increase. His helmet display showed it climbing. Park spoke carefully. Our security protocols require full protective gear during diplomatic events. It is standard procedure. Nothing personal? But it is personal, Velmora said. Her voice was not angry. It was sad. When we came aboard your station, we removed our ceremonial armor. We show you our true forms. This is how we demonstrate trust. How we show we come in peace. Myre stepped forward slightly. Ambassador, in human culture, armor does not always mean distrust. It means preparedness, protection. It is different from your traditions. Kirik spoke up then, his translator crackling. But why do they need protection from us? Are we dangerous? Do they think we will attack during peace talks? No, Park said quickly. It is not about you specifically. It is about general security. Then who is the threat? Velmora asked. We are in your station, in your space. If you do not trust us here, in this room, when will you ever trust us? The questions hung in the air. Daehyun found himself thinking about them. Really thinking. When would humans trust the Thrussians? When would he take off his armor? Park was struggling to find an answer. Daehyun could see it in her posture. This was not in the protocols. This was not something she had prepared for. Our procedures exist for good reasons, Park said finally. We have followed them for years. They keep everyone safe. Safe from what? Kirix asked. There was frustration in his translated voice now. Safe from peace? Safe from connection? Velmora placed a hand on Kirix's arm. A calming gesture. Then she looked at Commander Park with all her compound eyes. We Thrussians have a word? Shell-dwellers. It describes beings who hide inside protection and never come out. Who fear the world so much they cannot participate in it. We thought humans were braver than that. The insult was clear. Daehyun saw Park's jaw tighten. We are brave, Park said, her voice hard. We fought a war. We survived. We made peace. That takes courage. War takes one kind of courage, Velmora agreed. But peace takes another kind. It takes the courage to be vulnerable, to show your true face, to trust. In that moment, Daehyun understood. The Thrussians were not asking for submission. They were not testing human strength. They were asking for something much harder. They were asking humans to be real with them. His hand moved to his helmet seal. Almost unconsciously. Almost like his body knew what needed to happen before his mind caught up. Corporal Kim. Commander Park's voice cut through his thoughts. It came through his private communication channel, sharp, clear, stern. Stand down. His hand stopped moving. That is an order, Park continued. You do not break formation. You do not remove your armor during a security operation. Is that understood? Daehyun looked at Commander Park, even without seeing her face clearly. He knew her expression, hard, unbending, doing what she thought was right. Yes, Commander, he said quietly, his hand dropped to his side. Velmora saw the exchange. She did not know the words, but she understood the meaning. Her body language shifted, closed, disappointed. I see, she said. You give orders to hide, and your soldiers obey. I give orders to maintain security, Park said. Her voice had that stern quality that Daehyun knew well. The voice that said this discussion was over. This is how we operate. Then we cannot work with you, Velmora said simply. She stood. The other Thrussians stood with her. We came hoping to find partners. Beings we could trust. But you do not trust us. You do not even trust yourselves enough to be seen. Ambassador, please, Murray said. We can find a compromise. We can discuss different protocols. There is nothing to discuss, Kirik said. They choose their shells over our friendship? That tells us everything. Velmora moved toward the door. The other Thrussians followed. Daehyun and his team moved aside to let them pass. It felt wrong. Everything about this felt wrong. Park tried one more time. Ambassador Valmora? We can continue these talks. We can find understanding. Valmora paused at the door. She looked back at Park, then at the armored soldiers, then at Daehyun specifically. Something in how he stood must have told her he was the one who had almost acted. "Young soldier," she said to him. "You wanted to show your face? I saw it. Why did you stop?" Daehyun did not answer. Could not answer. "Because someone told you not to," Valmora said. "Someone spoke sternly and you obeyed. That is your tragedy. You know what is right, but you do not do it." Then the Thracians left. The diplomatic hall felt empty and cold. Commander Park stood rigid at the table. Myre looked like she might cry. The security team remained at attention, waiting for orders. "Dismissed," Park said finally. "Everyone back to regular duties." The soldiers filed out. Daehyun walked slowly, his mind replaying everything, his hand on the helmet seal. Park's stern order. His obedience. The disappointed look from Valmora. In the corridor outside, Jiwoo was waiting. She was not part of the security detail, but she must have heard what happened. "News traveled fast on a space station. Is it true?" she asked. "The Thracians left?" "Yes, what happened?" Daehyun kept walking. "We failed them." "I failed them. How?" "You followed orders. You did your duty?" He stopped and looked at her. Maybe that was the failure. Back in his quarters, Daehyun finally took off his helmet. He looked at his reflection in the darkened screen on the wall. His face looked older than he remembered, tired, the face of someone who had been hiding. For too long, he thought about what Valmora had, said Shell-dwellers beings, who feared the world too much to participate. In it. Was that what he had become? His communicator buzzed. A message from Captain Taeyang-o, the station security chief. "Come to my office. We need to talk." Daehyun put his helmet back on and went. Captain O was older, approaching 40. He had seen more wars than Daehyun, more peace negotiations, more failures and successes. His office was small and cluttered with reports and star charts. "Sit," O said. Daehyun sat, but did not remove his helmet. "You wanted to take it off," O said. "Not a question. A statement. Yes. Why did you not?" "Orders. Commander Park ordered me to stand down." "To maintain formation." O nodded slowly. "And you always follow orders?" "Yes, that is what good soldiers do." "Yes." O leaned back in his chair. "I have been wearing a uniform for 30 years. You know what I learned?" Daehyun waited. Sometimes the armor we wear is not protecting us from enemies. It is protecting us from ourselves, from having to feel things, from having to be vulnerable, from having to make hard choices. The words hit Daehyun hard. He had never thought about it that way. "The Thracians did not ask us to be weak," O continued. "They asked us to be brave in a different way. And we could not do it. What should I have done?" O looked at him steadily. "That is not for me to say. But I will tell you this. Following orders is important. But knowing when to make your own choice is more important. That is what separates a soldier from a machine." Daehyun left the office with more questions than answers. He walked through the station, seeing it differently now. Everyone here wore some kind of armor. Physical armor, emotional armor, the armor of rank and protocol. Were they all shell-dwellers? Was he? That night he could not sleep. He lay in his bunk, still wearing most of his armor, and stared at the ceiling. He kept seeing Valmora's face, hearing her words, feeling his own hand on the helmet seal, the moment when he could have changed everything, the moment when someone spoke sternly. The moment when he chose obedience over instinct. And now there might be war again. Because he had not been brave enough. 3 days after the Thracians left, everything fell apart. The Thracian collective sent an official message. They were recalling all their diplomats from human space. They were canceling trade agreements. They were moving military ships to the border. unless humanity demonstrated what they called true-facing. They would consider the peace accord broken. Aegis 7 went on high alert. Fleet Command sent reinforcements. Everyone expected war to start again at any moment. Commander Park called an emergency meeting with all senior staff. Dae-Hyan attended as head of the security detail. The room was full of officers, all looking grim. "The situation is clear," Park said. Her voice was stern and controlled. "The Thracians are testing us. They want to see if we will bend to intimidation. We will not. We will increase our military presence. We will show strength. We will force them to back down." Captain O spoke up. "Commander, with respect, maybe we should consider their perspective. They are not asking for surrender. They are asking for trust." "Trust is earned over time," Park replied. "Not demanded under threat. We will not negotiate while they have ships pointed at us." But we had ships pointed at them during the meeting," Murray said quietly. "We had armed soldiers in full combat armor. How was that different?" Park's expression hardened. "That was security protocol. This is blackmail. We do not reward threats." The meeting continued, but Dae-Hyan barely heard it. He kept thinking about the Thracian ships gathering at the border, about the pilots in those ships, about the humans who would have to fight them. All because no one would take off their armor. After the meeting, Captain O found Dae-Hyan in the corridor. "You are quiet," O said. "What are you thinking?" "I am thinking that we are going to war again." "Because of me?" "Because I did not take off my helmet. You followed orders. And look where it got us." Dae-Hyan turned to face O. "You were right. About the armor. About protection becoming a prison. I wore this suit for so long that I forgot how to be human." O studied him. "What are you going to do about it?" That was the question. What could he do? He was one soldier. One person. But he kept thinking about Valmora's words. About true-facing. About courage. "I need to try again," Dae-Hyan said. "I need to reach out to them. Commander Park will never allow it. Then I will ask for permission. And if she says no, I will do it anyway." O's eyes widened slightly. "That is disobedience. That could end your career. My career does not matter if there is another war. If more people die because I was too afraid to take off a helmet." Dae-Hyan went to Commander Park's office. He stood at attention in front of her desk. "Permission to speak freely, Commander." Park looked up from her reports. "Granted. I believe we failed the Thracians. I believe we failed our mission. And I believe I can fix it. Explain. Let me contact them. Let me go to them without armor, without weapons. Let me show them that at least one human understands what they are asking for." Park stood up. Her face was stern, angry. "You want to throw away your career? Your duty? For what? To play diplomat? To prevent a war. We have diplomats. We have procedures. We do not send soldiers on unauthorized missions because they have feelings about a failed negotiation. This is more than feelings, Commander. This is about understanding that we were wrong. That I was wrong. I should have taken off my helmet that day. You ordered me not to. And I obeyed. But maybe I should not have." The room went very quiet. What Dae-Hyan had just said was close to insubordination. Questioning a direct order, Park's voice dropped to a dangerous level. "You think you know better than me? Better than Fleet Command? Better than all the protocols we have built to keep people safe?" "No, Commander. I think I know what the Thracians need to see. And it is not strength. It is vulnerability. It is trust. It is someone brave enough to stand in front of them without protection and say we were wrong, request denied." Park's voice was ice cold. "You will report to your regular duties. You will maintain combat readiness. You will follow orders. Dismissed." Dae-Hyan did not move. "I said dismissed, Corporal." Slowly, carefully, Dae-Hyan reached up to his helmet. His fingers found the seal. The same seal he had touched 3 days ago. The same seal that could have changed everything. This time, no one would stop him. The seal released with a hiss. Daehyun lifted the helmet off his head. He set it on Commander Park's desk. The sound of it hitting the surface seemed impossibly loud. "Then I am done, Commander." Park stared at him. "What are you doing?" "Something I should have done 3 days ago." Daehyun began removing his armor. The gauntlets first, then the chest plate. Each piece fell to the floor with a heavy thud. "I cannot wear this anymore. Not when it represents walls instead of protection. Not when it stops me from doing what is right. Corporal Kim, stop this right now." "That is an order." But Daehyun kept going. The leg armor, the boots. Each piece removed felt like shedding weight he had carried for too long. Finally, he stood in just his basic duty uniform. No armor, no weapons. Just himself. "I am sorry, Commander," he said quietly. "You have been a good leader. I learned a lot serving under you. But I cannot follow orders that I know in my heart are wrong. I cannot be part of a system that chooses pride over peace." He saluted one final time. Military precision. Respect for everything she had taught him. Then he turned and walked toward the door. "If you walk out that door, you are finished in the military," Park said. Her voice was still stern, but something else was in it now. Maybe shock. Maybe respect. "You will lose everything you have worked for." Daehyun paused at the door. "I already lost the important things, Commander. I lost them when I chose armor over humanity. I'm just trying to get them back now." He walked out. The corridor outside felt different without armor, cooler, more exposed. But also lighter, freer. Daehyun walked through the station, past soldiers who stared at him in shock. Past Jiwoo, who looked like she did not know whether to salute or ask questions. Past the mess hall where people stopped eating to watch him go by. Everyone recognized him. Everyone knew he never took off his armor. And now here he was, walking through the station in just a uniform. Carrying nothing, he went to the civilian quarters, to Murray's small office. She looked up when he entered, and her eyes went wide. "Daehyun? What happened? Where is your armor?" "I left it in Commander Park's office. Along with my career." He sat down across from her. "I need your help. I need to send a message to the Thracians. A real message. One that follows their protocols, their cultural rules. I need to apologize properly." Murray's hands were shaking. "Do you know what you just did? Do you understand the consequences?" "Yes, and I would do it again. Will you help me?" She looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Yes, but this will take time. Days, maybe. The language is complex. The cultural nuances are very specific. If we get it wrong, it could make things worse. Then we will get it right." They worked for 4 days straight. Murray taught Daehyun about Thracian communication styles, about the different levels of respect in their language, about the specific way to acknowledge fault without seeming weak, about what true facing really meant. During those days, Daehyun processed his discharge from the military. It was quick. He had walked away from his post. He had disobeyed direct orders. There was no coming back from that. Some soldiers avoided him. Some looked at him with anger. But some, like Jiwoo and Captain O, looked at him with something else, curiosity, maybe even admiration. On the 5th day they finished the message. Murray recorded it in both human speech and Thracian clicking sounds. The message was simple but profound. "I am Daehyun Kim. I was a soldier of humanity. I wore armor to protect myself and others. But I've learned that true protection comes not from walls, but from bridges. Not from hiding, but from showing our true faces. I failed you when you came to us in peace. I knew what you needed, and I did not give it. I obeyed orders instead of my conscience. For this I am deeply sorry. I ask nothing except a chance to speak with you again. This time I will come as I am. No armor, no weapons. No walls, just one person trying to understand another." They sent the message through back channels, through trade networks, through any connection they could find to Thracian space. 2 days later, a response came. Daehyun was in his new quarters in the civilian section when Murray found him. She was holding a datapad and she was crying. They answered, she said. Elder Korana herself. She wants to meet you. Daehyun felt his heart race. When? Where? Neutral station. 4 days from now. But there are conditions. You come alone. No escort, no weapons. No armor, I accept. Daehyun, if this goes wrong, if they hurt you, it will start a war for certain. And if I do not go, we have a war anyway. At least this way, there is a chance. When Commander Park learned about the meeting, she tried to stop it. But Daehyun was a civilian now. She had no authority over him. The best she could do was send an escort ship and issue stern warnings. Captain O volunteered to pilot the escort. I will take you to the neutral station, he said. I will not interfere, but I will make sure you get there safely. The night before departure, Jiwoo came to see Daehyun. She looked troubled. Everyone is talking about what you did, she said. Some people think you are a hero. Some think you are a traitor. What do you think? She was quiet for a moment. I think you are brave. Braver than anyone in armor. The neutral station hung in empty space between human and Thracian territory. It was old, built decades ago by a species that no longer existed. Now it served as a meeting place for beings who did not trust each other enough to meet on home ground. Captain O brought the transport in slowly. I will wait here, he said to Daehyun. However long it takes, thank you, and Daehyun, whatever happens in there, you have already done something important. You made a choice? Not everyone has that courage. Daehyun nodded and left the ship. The docking tube felt very long. At the end was an airlock. Beyond that, the Thracians waited. He felt every step. Without armor, his body felt light but exposed. Every sound seemed louder. Every movement seemed significant. This was what it meant to be vulnerable. To be truly present, the airlock opened into a large circular room. The walls were a strange blue metal. The ceiling was high. And in the center of the room sat Elder Korana. She was the largest Thracian Daehyun had ever seen, ancient. Her natural armor was covered in scars and marks from countless years. Her compound eyes watched him with an intelligence that felt heavy. 4 arms rested calmly at her sides. Daehyun stood at the entrance. He had practiced what to say, how to stand, how to greet her properly. But now, facing her, the words felt small. Elder Korana, he said, bowing in the Thracian way Myray had taught him. I am Daehyun Kim. Thank you for agreeing to meet me. She did not respond immediately. Instead, she rose from her seated position and began to circle him, slowly, carefully, studying him from every angle. Her movements were graceful despite her size. Daehyun stood still. Let her look. This was part of true facing. Allowing yourself to be seen completely. Finally, she spoke. Her translator rendered her clicking speech into human words. You're afraid? Yes, Elder. Good. Fear means you understand the importance of this meeting. Fear means you are being honest. She completed her circle and faced him directly. Sit. There were no chairs. Just cushions on the floor. Daehyun sat cross-legged. Korana settled across from him, her multiple legs folding in a way that seemed impossible. I received your message, she said. I saw the images you sent. Of you removing your armor. Of you walking away from your commander. Tell me, was it difficult? The hardest thing I have ever done. Harder than fighting in the war? Daehyun thought about that. Yes, in war I knew who the enemy was. I knew what I was supposed to do. But this, choosing to disobey orders? Choosing to be vulnerable? That felt like jumping off a cliff without knowing if there was ground below. Korana made a sound. Her translator said it was laughter. A good description. This is what we ask of all species we meet. To jump without knowing. To trust when trust is hard. Why? Daehyun asked. Why is it so important? The armor, the weapons, the protection? Because it is easy to stand behind walls and call it strength. Every species does this at first. They build bigger ships, stronger weapons, thicker armor. They think this makes them powerful. But it only makes them isolated. She shifted, her ancient body creaking slightly. We Thrussians learned this long ago. We had wars. Terrible wars. We hid behind our armor and our pride. We almost destroyed ourselves. Then one of our elders did what you did. She removed her armor in front of her enemies and said, "I am tired of fighting. I am tired of hiding. Let us try something else." What happened? Some of her enemies killed her, but others stopped. They looked at her vulnerability and saw their own. They realized they were tired too. Tired of war. Tired of fear. From that moment, we began to change. Daehyun felt the weight of those words. So when we kept our armor on during the meeting, you saw us as still trapped in that old way. The way of fear. Yes, and more than that, we saw that your leaders could not allow even one soldier to make a different choice. When you reached for your helmet, we saw the possibility. Then your commander stopped you, and we saw the prison. She was trying to keep everyone safe. I know, and she is not wrong to want that. But safety without connection is just a slower death. It is loneliness. It is stagnation. It is walls that eventually become tombs. They talked for hours. Korana asked Daehyun about his life, about the war, about what made him become a soldier, about what made him take off his armor. Daehyun found himself telling her things he had never told anyone, about the friends he lost in the war, about how the armor became a way to not feel grief, about how he forgot what his own face looked like, about the moment he realized he had become more machine than man. And now? Korana asked. Now that you have walked away from the armor? Who are you? I do not know yet, Daehyun admitted. I'm still figuring that out. Good, that is the beginning of wisdom. Not knowing, but being willing to discover. As the sun of this system set beyond the station windows, Korana stood. Walk with me, she said. They walked through the station corridors. Korana moved slowly, clearly feeling her age. She told Daehyun about Thrussian culture, about their philosophy, about how they raised their young to value truth over comfort. Your species is young, she said. You have only been traveling the stars for a short time. You still think like warriors, like survivors. This is natural. But if you want to truly join the community of spacefaring peoples, you must evolve beyond this. How? By doing what you did. By having individuals brave enough to step beyond their culture's walls. By showing others that vulnerability is not weakness. They returned to the circular room. Daehyun felt exhausted but also lighter. Something had shifted inside him during this conversation. I will tell you something, Korana said. We have been watching your species for many years. We have been testing you. Not to be cruel, but to see if you could grow. Many species fail this test. They choose isolation over connection. They build their walls higher until they suffocate. What happens to those species? They fade. They stagnate. Eventually they die alone, wondering why the universe seems empty. Daehyun felt a chill. And what about humans? Did we fail the test? Korana's compound eyes seemed to soften. You did not fail. One human made a choice. That is enough. That is how change begins. With one person jumping off the cliff. But I'm just one person? Commander Park is still in charge. The military still thinks the same way. What can one person do? More than you know. Your action has already started ripples. I have heard reports. Other humans are talking about what you did. Some agree, some disagree. But they are talking. They are questioning. This is how evolution happens. Korana moved to a console on the wall and pressed several buttons. A holographic display appeared, showing Thrussian space and human space. I will return to my people and tell them what I have learned here. That at least one human understands true facing. That at least one human is brave enough to be vulnerable. And I will recommend that we resume negotiations. Daehyun's heart leaped. Truly? But there is a condition. We will only negotiate with humans who come as you came. Without armor, Without weapons. Without walls. We need to see your faces. Your real faces. Not your military masks. They will never agree to that. The military will refuse. They will say it is impossible. Then there will be war. But it will not be our choice. We have extended our hand. It is up to your people to take it. She turned to face him fully. You must return to your station. You must convince them. Show them that what you did was not weakness, but strength. Show them that peace requires more courage than war. I am not a diplomat. I am not even a soldier anymore. Who will listen to me? Anyone who has ever felt trapped. Anyone who has ever wondered if there is more to life than fear. Anyone who is tired of living behind walls. You will find that is more people than you think. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Korana extended one of her 4 arms. The gesture was clearly meant as a handshake. Daehyun took her hand. It felt strange. Hard like armor, but warm, alive. Thank you, Elder Korana. For listening. For understanding. Thank you, Daehyun Kim, for being brave enough to try. Now go, show your people what you have learned. Daehyun returned to the transport ship. Captain O looked up eagerly as he entered. How did it go? Daehyun sat down, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. She is giving us another chance. But we have to do it her way. We have to send people without armor. Commander Park will never allow it. I know, but I have to try. I have to make them understand. As they flew back toward Aegis 7, Daehyun looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there were thousands of human stations and ships. Millions of people. All of them living behind various kinds of armor. All of them afraid, but maybe, just maybe, some of them were ready to try something different. Maybe some of them were tired of being shell-dwellers. Maybe some of them would be brave enough to jump. The transport ship docked at Aegis 7 8 hours later. Daehyun expected to be arrested or at least stopped by security. Instead, he found a crowd waiting at the docking bay. Soldiers, civilians, officers, all watching him. At the front stood Commander Park. Her face was unreadable. Corporal Kim, she said, then corrected herself. Mr. Kim, we need to talk. They walked to a conference room, followed by Captain O and several senior officers. Murray was there too, looking nervous. Everyone sat except Park, who stood at the head of the table. Tell us what happened, she said. Daehyun told them everything. About Elder Korana, about the conversation, about the Thracian offer to resume negotiations, and about the condition. When he finished, the room was silent. Then one admiral, a woman named Sumi, spoke up. They want us to send diplomats without any protection? That is insane. That is suicide. It is not suicide, Daehyun said quietly. It is trust. It is what they need to see from us. We cannot put our people at risk like that, another officer said. What if it is a trap? What if they hurt our diplomats? Then we would have our war anyway, Captain O said. But at least we would have tried something different first. Commander Park had been quiet through all of this. Now she spoke. The decision is not mine alone. This goes to Fleet Command, to the civilian government. But I will say this. She looked at Daehyun. What you did was insubordinate. It was against every protocol we have. But it also may have saved us from a war. I do not know whether to court-martial you or give you a medal. I do not need either, Daehyun said. I just need you to listen to what the Thracians are really saying. They are not asking for surrender. They are asking for connection. The meeting ended without a decision. But something had changed. People were talking, questioning, thinking. Over the next week, something unexpected happened. The story of Daehyun's walk spread, not just through military channels, but everywhere. Through news feeds, through social networks, through civilian communities. Recordings of him removing his armor in Commander Park's office had leaked somehow. Images of him walking through the station without protection. Reports of his meeting with Elder Korana. All of it became public. Humanity started debating. Some people called him a traitor. A coward, someone who abandoned his duty. Military groups issued statements condemning his actions. Traditional news sources questioned his judgment, but others saw something different. Ji Woo was one of them. She came to find Dae Hyen in the civilian quarters where he now lived. "I have been thinking about what you did," she said. "About walking away from the armor. And I realized something. That was not weakness. That was the bravest thing I have ever seen. It did not feel brave, because real courage never does. Real courage feels like being terrified and doing it anyway." She paused. "Some of us in the military have been talking about what you said, about armor becoming a prison, about protecting ourselves so much that we forget how to connect with others. And some of us want to try. If they do send a delegation to the Thracians, some of us want to volunteer, to go without armor, to show them that you are not the only human who can be brave." More soldiers came to him over the following days. Not many, but enough. Young ones mostly, like Jiwoo, people who were tired of the old ways, who wanted to see if peace could really work. Civilians too. Scientists, teachers, engineers, people who had never worn military armor, but had been wearing other kinds of protection. Emotional armor. Social armor. The walls people built to keep from being hurt. "You showed us that we do not have to live behind walls," one civilian woman told him. "That it is okay to be vulnerable. That is a gift." 10 days after his meeting with Korana, Fleet Command made their decision. They would send a delegation to the Thracians, but it would be volunteers only. People who understood the risks. People who were willing to go without armor. They asked Dae Hyen to lead it. Commander Park delivered the news personally. She came to his quarters and stood in the doorway for a moment, just looking at him. "I was wrong," she said finally. "Not about everything. Not about the need for security and caution, but about rigidity. About forgetting that sometimes the mission changes and we have to change with it. You were doing what you thought was right, Commander. So were you. The difference is, you had the courage to do it even when I ordered you not to." She stepped inside and sat down. "I have been a soldier for 20 years. I have followed orders and given orders. That is what I know. But you taught me something. You taught me that sometimes the most important thing is knowing when to make your own choice. What changed your mind? Watching what happened after you left. Seeing people respond to what you did. Seeing them question things I thought were settled. I realized that leadership is not about enforcing the old ways. It is about recognizing when new ways are needed." She stood to leave, then paused. "The delegation leaves in 3 days. 15 volunteers have signed up. Captain O, that young Private Jiwoo, Myre the linguist. Others, all of them want to go because of what you showed them. I am scared, Commander. What if I am wrong? What if this fails? Then it fails. But at least you tried. At least you had the courage to step beyond the walls." She almost smiled. "Besides, I have seen war. I know what that cost. This is worth the risk." The next 3 days passed quickly. Dae Hyen met with the volunteer delegation. They were all so different. Different ages, different backgrounds, different reasons for volunteering. But they all shared one thing. They were tired of living behind walls. They trained together. Not combat training. Cultural training. Myre taught them about Thracian customs, language, and proper behavior. They learned how to show respect without seeming weak. How to be vulnerable without being defenseless. On the morning of departure, something unexpected happened. A ship arrived from Earth from the central government. They sent a representative, an older man named Junho who worked in the diplomatic corps. "I have been authorized to tell you something," Junho said to the assembled delegation. "What you are doing has been noticed at the highest levels. The President herself has been following your story. She wants you to know that if this works, it will change everything. Not just relations with the Thracians, but humanity's entire approach to alien contact. And if it fails?" Someone asked. Junho smiled sadly. "Then at least we tried something brave." And brave failures teach us more than safe successes ever could. The delegation boarded their ship. It was a civilian transport unarmed with no military escort. Just 15 humans going to meet the Thracians with nothing but hope and courage. As they traveled through space, Daehyun looked at his companions. Jiwoo was reading about Thracian philosophy. Captain O was meditating. Marae was reviewing her notes. Others were just staring out the windows, thinking their own thoughts. "Are you scared?" Jiwoo asked him, terrified. "Good, me too. But I would rather be scared and trying than safe and hiding." They arrived at Thracian space 2 days later. A Thracian ship met them and escorted them to a station orbiting one of their worlds. As they docked, Daehyun could see through the windows. Hundreds of Thracians waited inside. This was not a small meeting. This was something bigger. Elder Korana greeted them personally. She looked at each human carefully, then made a sound her translator rendered as satisfaction. "You came," she said. "All of you. Without armor. Without weapons. Showing your true faces. We came to learn," Daehyun said. "And to show you that at least some humans understand what you have been trying to teach us. Come, there is much to discuss." The negotiations took weeks. They were difficult. There were disagreements. There were moments of frustration on both sides. But there were no walls. No armor. Just beings trying to understand each other. The Thracians met them halfway. They explained their concerns, their fears, their hopes for what humanity could become. The humans listened. Really listened. Not planning what to say next, but truly trying to understand. And slowly, carefully, trust began to build. They created new agreements, new trade routes, new cultural exchanges. But more importantly, they created genuine connections. Friendships even. Jiwoo became close with a young Thracian warrior named Villain. They spent hours comparing their different approaches to duty and honor. Captain O found himself in deep, philosophical conversations with Thracian elders about the nature of courage. Daehyun spent much of his time with Korana, learning about her long life and sharing stories of his own journey. "You have done something remarkable," she told him one evening. "You showed your people that change is possible. That vulnerability can be strength. That is a rare gift." 6 months later, Daehyun returned to Aegis 7. The station had changed. A whole new section had been built. A cultural exchange center where humans and Thracians could meet, learn, and work together. Commander Park met him at the docking bay again. But this time she was smiling. "Welcome back. I have something to show you." She took him to the new exchange center. Inside, Daehyun saw something that made his heart swell. Human children and young Thracians learning together. Teachers from both species sharing knowledge. Scientists collaborating on projects. All of it without barriers. Without walls. "This is what you started," Park said. "With one choice. With one moment of courage. I just took off my helmet." "No, you did something much harder."